Hey there, fancy friends, it's Oliver, and in this video I will tell you why foil is a waste of time and you should start with wrestling. Didn't I told you before you should start with the foil? Right, so make sure to watch till the end. But it begins with Jakob Happel. Happel was a German turner. The turner were always a society which wanted to form healthy, strong and defensive people to defend themselves and the homeland if needed. There were also other examples of such movements in Europe, as the Sokol you may know from video clips around on YouTube, and the Savate troops you may know from our Polish war psych video. If we think about the turner, we think about gymnasts doing calisthenics or apparatus gymnastics, and of course, from this channel, clubs and wand exercises. But many teachers for turning were also fencing masters, and fencing was mostly a part of turner education, such as the foil, the sabre, boxing, wrestling, but also bayonet fencing. And Indian clubs and wands were also used as tools to teach fighting with weapons. Jakob Happel thought the foil is a terrible weapon to start with. It is a way too complex. And yes, it is. That's why switching to other weapons after the foil is relatively easy. But because it's so complex and need much time, the students lose their interests over time. But motivation makes learning easier. Of course, Happel wanted everyone to start with a proper base on gymnastics, as many exercises will lead to wrestling as a fundamental of fighting skills. And after wrestling, the students will be introduced in boxing, which is the foundation for fighting with weapons in many points. After boxing, there will be kickboxing and something he called Rutzen, which is it's just unarmed combat, the combination of wrestling, fist and kickboxing. The first weapon tuft will be the simple stick. It is light, easy to move, and one did not have to keep an eye on the edge alignment, but can concentrate on the basics. Next step would be the stuff, as it is more or less what we have learned in the stick, but with two hands for a longer or heavier weapon. After that, we are taking a bigger step to the sabre and sword, which also bases on the movements we have learned with the stick. The student should now be able to handle the weight better, and with the already learned basics, he can now focus on things like back edge work and other stuff, which makes more sense with a blade or a basket. And Happel also recommends the sabre before the cutting sword, because the curved blade gives a better visual feedback about the edge alignment. And at this point, Happel introduced the foil or thrusting sword, to which focuses on the thrust, which could also be used in the stick, staff and sabre, but not that effective, of course. Last but not least, because it is the most complex weapon, the Bionet Rifle. It is by far the heaviest and combines thrusting, cutting, slicing and of course shooting. And all of this should be done in 4 years of training, and it could be done easily because everything is connected. Curious? I will tell you. Happel set fencing only 2 times a week, and he splits the year into first and second semester. The first half of year 1, the students get taught wrestling in both sessions. In the second half, one session is for more advanced wrestling, while the other one is for boxing with hand and feet. The first half of year 2, the students go for advanced boxing and get introduced into stick fighting. In the second half we go for stick and stuff. The third year starts with advanced stuff and basic sabre, while it ends with advanced sabre and the thrusting sword. And finally, the first half of year 4 is used to intensify the sword or foil and learn the Bionet Rifle. And then go on with the rifle and, as a bonus section, fighting with unequal weapons like staff against stick, rifle against sabre, and so on. Happel claims in the same time you would learn proper foil the regular way as if you start with it. You can learn all weapons of his method because he makes small steps and goes from simple to advanced. So if the student reaches the foil, it is by way not that complex anymore. Also, Happel is a practitioner. He wants to get rid of all the useless rules which has established over time. They may have reasons in their time, but we have to come back to train as it would be useful on the battlefield. And by the way, Happel also let his students fight little skirmishes, group against group, as it is as close as they could easily get to real fighting. But we are talking about rules and artifacts like thrusts only at the chest, no saber cuts to the legs, no punches underneath the belt line, and so on. One should learn to defend themselves against anything, so we must learn to attack any target we can reach. A thrust on the forearm could probably not end the fight, as well as a cut to the leg, but it affects the opponent in a way we could end easily the fight right afterwards. And Happel's point of view was extreme. You could imagine his vision did not find many supporters, as they maybe felt a little bit offended, so it was never implemented on a great scale in Germany. To form a warrior or soldier, we should start with wrestling. That sounds familiar. And the first weapon we should take is a wooden stick. Sounds familiar. But does that mean my advice to start with the foil is invalid? In fact, no. Happel wanted to work against the fact of starting with the foil and using the foil as a foundation. But because they did, we had to know the foil as a basis of fencing tough at that time. You could be angry about it, but it's true. And if you do not know what I'm talking about, then have a look at the video why every Hemaist should do foil. But let's talk about Happel's vision of a martial art for the German country here. And it should have been because every male would have gone through this course of education. And Happel thought it if everyone would have enough time to learn how to fight properly, the military service, which every man does at this point, would be shorter because they could skip the weapon training, which obviously would not be as good as his teachings would be, and start with formation drills to get them back earlier in their regular life. What are your thoughts about Happel's vision? I'm curious to read it, so write me a comment, and you can also tell me if you want to see more of Happel's method in the future. So don't forget to like and subscribe. You probably join us on Patreon and on YouTube. And see ya in the next video.